And it is showtime. Welcome back, senders, to the podcast. This is episode 24. I got two special guests, two awesome mountain bikers. And the first one is Chris, aka Triple Whip, which I met him out in Sedona. I kind of got lost on a ride and I was heading over towards Broken Arrow, was going to try to do Hogwash, Hog's Heaven. And I see this dude going up to do the white line. So had to stay and watch. And that's how I met Chris. And then through Chris, I got to meet Aaron tonight. And Aaron is a professional trials rider as well. Both of you guys are trials riders, but really bring, as we were saying backstage, a good potpourri of skills to the mountain bike, which is great. So thank you guys for being on the show tonight.
You're welcome. Yeah, I was glad to be here.
Chris and Aaron, if you wouldn't mind just telling the folks a little bit about who you are and your background so they can get a flavor of your ride style and where have you been?
Sure. So my name is Chris. My YouTube channel is Ride with Chris. I grew up in the Northeast, basically in the mid 90s. Got into mountain biking. My first bike was a GT Timberline, and just right away, I had older friends that I would ride with that would just kind of push you to do more and more. And it just kind of went from there, just, breaking parts and upgrading things and, progressing and, just the whole kind of East Coast hardcore style, if you will, or what it came to be known as. Back in the day, I grew up with some people might know Aaron Chase. He rode for many years for Cannondale. And I believe now he's with Commensal. But it was really awesome getting to see him ride because, among our group of friends, here we are, and he's just, he's just way up here. And so that was really cool to have those influences, which, stick with me to this day. And I just kind of carried that. I was in the service for a little bit, and I've been all around the US, and that East Coast, go all out, do whatever you can type style is just always kind of stayed with me. And here I am in Arizona, enjoying the great weather and getting to ride. I'm an ambassador rider for Giant, which is really cool. And getting to live my passion. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah. Thank you for your service too, Chris. That's awesome. And Aaron, tell us a little bit about you as well.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Lutze. I'm a professional trials rider, but also, kind of grew up as a trials rider. And in the Midwest, I grew up in Wisconsin. I rode trials for quite some time and then picked up a camera, started filming my friends. We started doing our thing. I fell in with the East Coast crew as well. Eventually took Match Videozine, which was a video series that I started, which originally was created to document kind of the growing trial scene. All these trials riders started riding more street and park, and that eventually ended up turning into essentially the roots of free ride on the East Coast in a lot of ways. I fell in with DH Productions and worked with Don Hampton for a really long time, got to know Aaron Chase. I still remember the first time seeing him ride was, just blew my mind. I hadn't had that kind of moment ever really at that point, and seeing a guy that talented throw down just nonchalant was unreal. But was out there for quite some time. And then, made my way out to the West Coast to Portland, Oregon, and just got to explore really both coasts in terms of riding, in terms of, riders and filming and traveling and stuff like that. After that, I actually started working for a company called Freecaster, which we made the first round of live streams for the World Cups. So if you ever watched before it was on Red Bull TV, if you ever watched it on the internet, we were the ones that started that. So I've got a couple stories from behind the scenes with Rob Warner on his first day on the job that I'd be happy to share. I've had a chance to do a lot of really cool things, and now kind of coming full circle, I also have a YouTube channel called Lutze Time, and it's a lot of trials and mountain bike tutorials based in trials riding, where I'm just trying to share as much of the knowledge that I've gained over the 25 years of riding, where you can, learn everything from how to track stand forever to riding up and over stuff. And, hopefully as the world opens back up again, I'll be able to travel and ride with some of my friends that we made along the way. And do some more stuff. But that's pretty much it.
Man, that's a cool background too. So it's crazy how the bike takes you guys from beginning to so many places. It's such a cool adventure. For those of us who are newer to mountain biking or just know of, DH, enduro, and trail, what is trials? Like what is that?
So trials riding, it's basically started in Germany and Europe. Back in the day, the father trials riders that had sons that were introducing them to moto trials would put them on a bicycle that had small wheels, usually 20-inch wheels, and that's how they would practice and then graduate to the dirt bike. And then that, of course, took off and became bike trials. We call that a mod trials bike with the small wheels. Some people on this podcast might have heard of Hans Ray. Tons of old school footage of him riding in the early 80s and throughout the 90s. OT Pi, I'm going to kind of butcher his name. I'm sorry, Aaron. Cesar Cantz.
Cesar Cañas, yeah.
Cañas, yeah. Incredible rider. And so, and it's basically getting the bicycle up and over obstacles, but without taking your feet off the pedals or dabbing. And in competition style, you get up to 5 dabs. If you put both feet down, that's, you're out. And you usually will have like a taped off section where you have to, you can't go outside of the tape in competition style. And then from that, it kind of progressed into street trials. Aaron touched on a little bit, where you're basically going to a park, like jumping on a cement picnic table or on a trash can, or doing a pivot 360 off a wall or something like that. And that scene kind of took off from there, but we'll get more into that later. But anyway, that's the basics of trials riding, and you can really do it on any type of bikes, especially now with like Danny McCaskill. He'll be on his enduro bike and be popping up a 5-foot wall, to gap or something like that, so but traditionally it started with the smaller bikes, and then stock would be a 26-inch wheel trials bike, and so on. But anyway, so those are the kind of general origins of what bike trials is and where it came from.
Wow.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that, and this is just my own personal thing, but I just think I think trials riding is magic, and it's a it's like a magic trick. Like, it's the same bike that you ride, but because I know the technique or the trick, I can just make it do what I want it to do. And when you learn these different techniques, you build and build and build and build, and all of a sudden you're seeing all these new lines just like kind of create like, oh, I could jump from there to there to there that you may not have previously seen. Or you're riding down the trail and you realize that this giant boulder in your way is actually something you're going to have fun on, not have to swerve around or whatever. And that's what made it fun for me in the beginning, and that's what still makes it fun for me. And why I've been able to really enjoy just riding every kind of bike, because so many of those skills transfer over. The basic balance that obviously everyone knows comes with trials is a big element of it, but just even being able to manipulate your body position, being able to modulate your brakes and your pedals, together, that's like the highest level that you can do on a bike, in my opinion. And so, yeah, it's just like this ultimate cheat code for getting good at bikes.
That's a cool way to put it. The cheat code. Yeah.
No, for sure.
Very cool.
And we had a question from Adam. He asked, how much harder is trials on a 29er and full suspension? Good question, actually. So when I was with the Giant Demo team traveling last year before COVID, actually right before COVID hit, the bike they gave me was a Trans 29er. A 120, 130 full suspension bike. And kind of to go on what Aaron was saying, where, you learn and you build your skill base with trials. Basically, the better you get, really the sky's the limit. And for me, I've been riding since 97. So for me, I can pretty much jump on any bike and just kind of start, kicking it around. Again, like he was saying, a lot of you ingrain these moves in your head, and it's pretty much the same for every bike, pedal kicks and balancing on the front. And it's just a matter of like getting used to the bike. So anyway, so I was on the 29er full suspension bike, and honestly, with it set in trail mode, so the travel's kind of, got a little bit of hardness to it. It really wasn't bad at all. I could gap with it. I could balance. I could front wheel pivot with it. I could bunny hop up stuff. It actually went up stuff a lot easier with those big wheels, just to do what's called a bump tap, where, if I can get this right, where you hit your front tire and the bike will just kind of travel up. Those moves actually I found were easier compared to my, on my hardtail trials bike. So yeah, when you get those techniques down, it really is universal across most bike platforms, I would say.
Yeah, that's definitely, when I watched you ride when we were in Sedona, I felt like I was looking at a magician. You were creating lines that I didn't think were there. I mean, I'm not, a pro mountain biker or anything, but I generally try to stay on the trail and I do things. But like Aaron was saying, there'd be a rock on a corner and there'd be a gap and you would take it. I was like, yeah. I guess that's a line. and you would figure out how to manipulate your body and bike to get it over. And it looks so smooth. It's great. And I love how Aaron called that, like, it's the ultimate cheat code. Like you got to learn these skills to progress, to see things that you didn't see before and still have fun on obstacles that are now part of the trail, which is awesome. You guys, take us back. I know we were talking about a little bit of the history. We talked about the history of trials. But as far as mountain biking goes, you guys are, tuned in. You guys started riding a while back. What is the history of mountain biking?
So yeah, awesome question. And that kind of segues into the whole premise of this podcast. So let's go back to really the late 70s, where mountain biking started with guys like Joe Breeze, Gary Fisher, the clunkers, as it were, where they were taking beach cruiser looking bikes, putting more aggressive tires on them and just sending it down, fire roads, basically, which then later progressed into the 80s, where you had the bike boom. You had the mountain bike boom and you had the BMX boom in the 80s, and where just sales were taking off. Technology was every year, like better bikes were coming out, and it was just increasing exponentially. And part of more what I'm going to talk about is the as we get later into the conversation, how when the mountain bike scene was progressing kind of into the BMX scene, how there was clashing there. So to kind of set that up, in the later 80s, where the bike boom kind of continued into the 90s, we didn't have our kind of lull until the early 2000s, where Norba closed up and UCI was going through some stuff, whereas BMX, Dennis McCoy said famously in an interview, in 1987, the top prize for winning a BMX comp was a Toyota truck. In 1988, 1989, it was like $100. Wow. So it's a huge shift. And into the really through the early 90s, you had pretty much guys like Matt Hoffman and Dennis kind of trying to carry the whole scene. Fast forward to summer 95, you had the Extreme Games, better known as the X Games. And that was really a big breath of fresh air for the BMX scene to kind of recoup from this lull where new tricks were happening. Skate parks were opening. With the X Games, it got broadcasted to a much wider range of people. And a lot of these people were seeing this stuff for the first time. And then in 96, you had the Winter Games. And around 96, 97 is when the mountain bike scene started to kind of get involved in that. If you go back and actually look at Chainsmoke, which was a really well-known and popular mountain bike video then, you have Libor Cars with his trial segment. You have Todd Lyons and Fuzzy Hall dirt jumping mountain bikes and doing backflips and X-ups and all this stuff. And that's where the BMX and mountain bike scenes started to come together, really. And kind of tying into my background, there was definitely some clashing with the progression. Mountain bikers were like, what the heck are you doing? Get a BMX bike if you're going to do that stuff. And the BMXers were like the same thing. Like, if you're going to be on a mountain bike, do mountain bike stuff. Like, stay off our skate parks, stay out of our dirt jumps. And so there was definitely some struggle there with that, as with anything progressing. But that was really the foundation into what we have today with, Rampage and Crankworks and all these modern amenities of biking that had its roots in all of that. And the reason I'm so glad Aaron is here to share some of his insight is because he was, as a filmmaker, he was part of that scene back then. He filmed and witnessed a lot of, again, the crossover of mountain bikes, not just being on trails, but dirt jumping and skate parks and street riding and free riding, and kind of leading all into that scene. So yeah, the BMXers, basically, to sum up, they felt like they were getting their feet stepped on, and I guess in some cases they were. You'd see a BMXer do a tail whip, a backflip, bar spin, and then we'd want to copy it. I had mentioned to Aaron earlier, in match 7 you had Jeffrey Nothing from Mushroomhead interview, where he talks about that, where the BMXers were like, well, why don't you go just do BMX stuff? And it's like, well, we don't want to do that. We want to do this stuff on mountain bikes. And we didn't know we had no idea at all back then that the scene was going to be what it is today. That's just what we wanted to do. And so to see it to progress to that, like kind of like our fruits of our labors pay off, for me, it's incredible to see that. And kids get to enjoy it and watch, Red Bull TV and see all and Instagram and social media, and they have all this access to these awesome riders and can, connect with them, where, back then it was, you had to like write into a magazine,
Yeah.
hope that your letter published or something. So to see it come full circle.
Make your own videos too. That worked.
With that, I'll hand it off to Aaron, just kind of laying that groundwork. But yeah, to sort of see it come full circle like that was really cool, coming out of that struggle.
That's very cool. And you guys, were these riders, these pioneers like Fuzzy Hall, did they come from the BMX scene? Did they come from the trial scene, or did they just started doing this stuff?
Well, it really came from a lot of different backgrounds, which is what made it so interesting, and so many different styles kind of came together. One thing that Chris was talking about was, how this was all kind of growing along, and mountain bikers showing up at dirt jumps and stuff like that. And one thing to also bear in mind is that at that time, there weren't, high-rise bars that were 31.8, whatever. Like, that wasn't a thing. We didn't have dirt jump handlebars. We didn't have free ride crank sets. We didn't have, anything, everything was being kind of cobbled together. There wasn't a complete bike that you could go buy. Even Aaron Chase was riding street on a lefty fork, like, what? So I think that's a really big consideration, that not only were they progressing the sport at maybe its most exponential level, but they were doing it basically on cross country bikes or downhill or dual slalom bikes. The bikes definitely were not custom, they weren't set up just right to do it. But that's also what made it so interesting. You have this group of trials riders who, maybe they have a suspension fork and a seat on their bike, not the most hardcore of trials guys, but they're trying to do more street-based stuff. Like Jeff Lanowski and that crew, where they're bringing real tech tricks to the free ride scene. And then you've got, guys like Darren Barraclough, who came from BMX, who can absolutely throw it down on a big jump, and, was riding mountain bikes because, he lived in Canada and had a bunch of friends that were mountain bikers, and did that as kind of just a fun thing to do, and all the tricks transferred over pretty easily. In fact, there were quite a few BMXers that came over. There's Chris Duncan, Will Erickson. A lot of BMXers like came in and checked it out and did their thing, and then went back to BMX. I think Claw is maybe one of the few that really like stuck around and really contributed probably the most out of anybody from the BMX community. But everybody kind of had these different roots and made this big melting pot. And I think one of the other things that was really interesting about that era specifically, that I don't think everybody necessarily got at the time, was that these top riders that were going to skate parks and riding skate parks, that wasn't the end all be all in their mind. they were looking at it like a gym. Like you go to the gym to lift heavy things or, run on the treadmill for however long so that you can go outside and do epic stuff, right? You can run a marathon or you can, whatever, right? And they looked at it the same way of, well, I'm going to learn it here at this skate park. I'm going to learn a hand plant over a spine. And then I'm going to go find a giant log and I'm going to hand plant over that thing because a mountain bike is the only bike that could do that. But I have to learn it in this skate park format first because it's smaller, safer, more controlled. Then I'm going to take it into this next spot. I'm going to learn flares on this quarter because next week I'm going to Utah and I build the same transition, but I'm going to do it off of a huge thing. So I think like there was a lot of nuance in that time too, that not everyone saw the final vision of where we were trying to go. And we weren't going to explain it to everybody either, but we knew kind of like where things were headed and everybody was kind of building toward that. And well, it ended up working out just fine.
Yeah, it did. It really did. It's cool because you were saying that in competition, the money really wasn't there in this new hybrid world. So these folks were motivated by the innovation of it or the stoke of it or just pushing the envelope. What was the motivation for some of these folks?
Yeah, I know for myself and my group of friends, we were just we just like to do that stuff, and it was, again, a hodgepodge of trials, street riding, dirt jumping, just basically progressing the scene. Once we realized, and as Aaron touched on, where, you were basically taking small cross-country frames, putting BMX parts on them and, having at it. But as the scene progressed, as the technology got better, components got better, wheels got better, you could go bigger and not worry about tacoing your wheels. Everything just kind of played off each other. And for us, it was really just kind of like cutting our teeth. Aaron Chase has a really cool ridementary video, I call it, called Killing Time. And the very purpose of that was to show the other side of riding, not just racing traditionally, but what other types of riders do and how that scene was progressing, and doing BMX tricks on mountain bikes, as we call it back then. So anyway, for us, it was just progressing the scene, having fun with this, realizing capabilities, like, hey, like with these new cranks and these pedals, I can grind that ledge or that bench, or with these new brakes, I can gap further, and and just kind of, or you'd watch a video and get inspired and be like, well, let me try what Aaron tried or what Lanowski tried, or and then you just kind of go from there. And yeah, as far as the money, if you want to comp, maybe you'd get a few $100. I mean, I think, and Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first Rampage, where I think it was Wade Simmons that won, I think the total purse was what, $15,000 or $20,000 at most.
I'm not totally sure. Yeah.
And
I mean, yeah, a lot of them were just, it was for the love in the beginning, for sure. I mean, I put on a contest inside a indoor motocross park called the Wham Bam Thank You Jam. And we did it in January when nothing else was going on. And people flew to Portland, Oregon just to ride this indoor warehouse. I mean, Sevenek was there. Campbell Call was there. I mean, everybody just flew to Portland because, well, what else are we going to do? It's another opportunity to ride in a contest, to get a contest result that I can add to my thing when I go to Interbike at the end of the year. It's a chance to get in, Decline magazine. It's, why not, and so it was interesting as an event. I was trying to do a handful of things at that point, and putting on events. You could get anybody to show up. That was never the question if there was money. I think for that one, I gave him $500 for first place, but it wasn't about the money really. It was just oh, you put on a contest? Yeah, we'll be there.
Awesome.
and it was really cool. That scene really banded together to really push towards that goal. I was having a conversation with Claw about a year ago. We were talking to the crew that put together Red Bull Formation, the women's freeride project, and we were talking about how we've all slept on each other's floors, we've all been to each other's houses, and I brought my camera, he brought his bike, and then we put this thing together, and we just kept putting shots up until something stuck. And Claude, same thing, like Bear Claw Invitational, right? He just put on his own contest, built his own jumps, invited all of his friends, and just like that accumulation over many, many years of, not only progression, but visibility, and just like, more people getting behind it, companies finally starting to support it, getting behind it. Shout out to our boys at Deity. But, like a lot of people like then got on like, oh, I'm not just going to have, cross country bike with BMX parts on it. Now there's a handlebar that's out there. Now there's a set of pedals out there. Now I can do this. Like, it wasn't just only riders coming in, it was the industry coming in to support this growing mass of events and rider community.
That's very cool. Do you think industry was kind of forced into supporting this new growth, or were they just were the folks from this new growth getting into industry and saying, hey guys, take a look at this. We need to evolve and make, literally this group helped develop the innovation of what we have today when you talk about Rampage and Red Bull and all this cool stuff. But was it these riders who got into industry, or did industry finally take notice?
Well, I think at first there was, hesitation. Again, if we're going back, let's say to the, mid to late 90s, where things were just kind of starting to, take off. Like I was saying before, again, you really had no choice but to put, BMX parts or downhill parts on your hardtail cross country bike and, kind of go at it like that. I would say with the advent of media, you had New World Disorder, the Chain Reaction series from Don Hampton, Aaron with the Match Video Zine series. As that began to grow and companies started to take notice of this, that it wasn't just cross country downhill dual slalom, that there was this whole other scene progressing. You have riders like Cam McCall, Bear Claw, Seminuk, these guys, Chase, they were starting to pioneer this. And by the time you kind of arced to the mid 2000s, you had even the bigger companies, Trek, Giant, Specialized with the P1 or P3 dirt jump bike, where you could buy a turnkey bike and not have to worry about destroying it in one go around because it was built to handle the punishment. And so I would definitely say by the mid to later 2000s, even in some of the early 2000s, Deity comes to mind. Again, when that media coming out, you really saw the components and everything just kind of come into its own, where companies started to notice, they started making better products, they started getting insights, asking the riders like, hey, what works, what doesn't work, and getting their thoughts on product development, which was huge in making leaps and bounds over, coming from those 90s and early 2000 scenes of having to kind of splodge things together. So
Wow.
I think the industry was in like an interesting place because they kind of had to meet the demand of the market. Not only was the community growing, but their athletes were participating in these things, and like, well, this is our guy and he's going to be in this contest. We got to get him the right stuff. And so, you think from Kyle Strait being on Specialized at that point is kind of their golden boy. He's got to have the right bike to ride so that he can go out and win that thing, and so you've got this massive, and that's really the thanks of all the racers that came over. You look at kind of the start list for the first handful of Rampages, and there's like the BC guys in there, but there's also Cedric Gracia, Kyle Strait, Cam Zink, all racers at the time. And, they got to have the right stuff to ride for an event like that. And the companies have to respond to for their guys as well. So I think that, we kind of came at them from every possible angle to demonstrate that the community was there, but also with the events, like to make sure that their own athletes were prepared for it and had the right equipment. Because if a bike breaks or whatever, that's not a good look. They don't want that,
Yeah. And I literally love, no pun intended on that, but I love that the love of the sport created created the whole thing. They weren't doing it for the money or anything like that. They were doing it out of the love, like you said. And then luckily they had good filmmakers like you, Aaron, that were helping get that out to the public. So I'm sure that helped a lot in developing where we are today with mountain biking, because I'm sure without that effort, it wouldn't get in front of people's eyes. They wouldn't be able to see what's going on and going, holy crap, that's Kyle Strait. Wait, what is he doing over there? What's going on? So, and I'm sure you got to see a ton of that being a filmmaker. I'm sure you were behind the lens going, what's going on here? What was that? Did you have some of those aha moments when you were filming these guys as the sport was growing?
Yeah, I mean,
here's some insight, Aaron. Let's hear some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that was a special thing to see stuff happen for the first time. Maybe one of the more memorable ones that stands out for me is Eric Porter did a double kink rail. So at that point, there were no pegs in mountain biking. You were sliding on basically your crank arm and the bottom of your fork.
Good Lord.
Drop out. And so to balance down a rail that's relatively long and also has two kinks in it, I mean, that was as street as it gets, but that was something special to see that and be like, no one's done that yet, you know?
Wow.
And he did another one in Malaga, Spain, that was like ridiculous. And just like a nuance to that, because he had disc brakes and he was grinding on his disc brake side, how did it go? He had to take his rotors off so that he could lock into the thing. So he was doing all these rails brakeless, which is terrifying.
Oh my gosh.
But, you know, like at a certain point too, and what was the most special for me, I think, if I'm honest about it, was when BMX kind of came back to us. So the moment for me was when we went to Malaga, Spain, and we rode with Ruben Alcantara. That was like the welcome home. Like, you guys made it. You're dope. Mountain bikes are cool, you know? Because for this whole time, I felt like we had a bit of a chip on our shoulder. I would watch every BMX movie, all the props movies, Road Fools, all that stuff. I would just consume as much like BMX and skate content as possible because that was cutting edge and they were getting the attention and they were doing the best stuff. And, you know, that's where we wanted to go. And when we were accepted back in, like, oh, Rampage is pretty dope. That's heavy, you know? Or, hey, come to Malaga and ride with me, you know? And you're walking through Ruben Alcantara's Etnies part, you know, like, isn't that the thing you jumped off of? And you tail whipped over to that, you know? Going and riding with him and you know, meeting all those, you know, that were still our heroes at that point. I guess they still are, but, you know, getting to meet them for the first time and interact with them and get respect from them was such a important moment for, I think, so many of us that, you know, we're taking inspiration from them, from both the filming side and from the riding side, and trying to implement it into our sport. That for me was like the moment where I felt like we kind of made it, you know. There are for sure milestones for everybody of when they think mountain biking and free ride really got to, you know, critical mass. But for me, being welcomed into the BMX community the way that we were was the most important.
Wow, that's cool. And when Aaron, you were filming a lot of, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Was that Summer of Shred that you were filming for? Is that what you were referencing? Just out of curiosity.
So the Malaga thing with Ruben was actually a gravity project, FSA gravity team that Porter was the team manager for. Oh, and right. That was something that he set up. And then I did do a project called Summer of Shred for the following 2 years after that, which it was a little bit different thing. We basically went to a bike company and we said, like, hey, we will ride every single one of your bikes with like the top pro in that category. We'll go around the world and do it. It'll be sweet. Just give us one of everything. And it actually worked out really well. It was funny at the end of the first year when we actually did do it. I mean, we went to Africa with Hans Ray. We filmed with downhill bikes with Greg Menard. We did dirt jumping with Timo Pritzel. Like, we went all over the world and did all this stuff. And I remember kind of having the recap conversation with Jill Hamilton at Haro. And she's like, I thought maybe you'd get like half of those things done. Like, the fact that you guys actually pulled it off.
Surprise.
Pretty cool. But yeah, we get to ride with Ryan Nyquist at the unit. That was really special. That was another one of those moments that was so surreal to be like, we're riding bikes with Ryan Nyquist, you know?
Like, what? Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Look at me, Mom.
What I have to say real quick personally, probably like on a personal proud moment, Aaron, you probably know Scotty Kramer. He has his own YouTube channel now. Well, when I was in the service, I was actually stationed near the Incline Club, which is where his park was. And I mean, to say that kid was a ripper would be the understatement of the century. And, you know, he's going around airing out the whole park, like, you know, he's like 360 tail whipping something I'm just trying to gap, and I'm just like, I gotta find something else to do. But I went up and I did this like this pivot trials move on the sub box where I like pivoted up on my front wheel, got to back wheel, like balanced and dropped in. And he was like, dude, I can't even do that. That's sweet. And I'm like, all right, if Scotty Kramer can do it,
put one up for a triple whip.
Yeah, right. So.
Oh man, dang, you guys, that's awesome. What do you think? And this is for both of you guys, with the sport and how it was exponentially growing, and you guys were capturing this, and in it, do you think that the advent of the GoPro actually helped it even catch fire more so?
Yes, I can tell you that what the GoPro option used to look like in the past was we called it a clamshell, and it was a box that was about like I don't know, about this big, and you'd have to wear a backpack, and then you would have this long cord that came out, and then there'd be like a heavy thing that was on your helmet somewhere that was definitely like weighting you one way or the other.
Oh my God.
It was not pleasant. And so we didn't do a lot of POV. Like, I don't even know if I had any POV footage in any of my films, but it was such a pain. And also, like, you know, the other element that the GoPro has, it's all digital. So I think the first 9, maybe first 11 movies that I made were all DV tape. So you would film it, and then you would go back and you do this thing called logging and capturing, where you'd go through and you'd set these in and out points. Like, okay, I want a clip that starts at minute 1 and ends at minute 3. And you'd go through the whole tape and do that. Hopefully it was all the same timeline, which sometimes didn't happen. That was totally different thing. And then you would tell the computer, and it would rewind the tape. It would pull all the clips off and digitize it off the tape. That process was, you know, for a 1-hour tape, that's a 3-hour process.
Wow.
And a GoPro, you just drag and drop, like, oh, I want that clip, done. And it takes 5 minutes to transfer over or whatever. So like, even setting the POV thing aside, being able to produce content at that much faster of a pace opened doors for a lot of people. And especially, like, you know, I had a DV deck and I had the computer, whereas with, you know, the GoPro, you just plug it in your computer, drag and drop, and you can post it right to YouTube, you know? So it simplified the process. And I think that simplifying the process of content creation was more important than just having a new way to shoot footage.
That makes sense.
Kind of piggyback on what he was saying about content creation. A few months ago, I was talking to filmmaker Reed Merchat. He is another pioneer of Aaron knows who I'm talking about, of trials videos. He in '98 he had Revolution, which I mentioned that specifically because that was the first, I mean, besides like watching a Hans Ray video, Revolution was the first trials video I saw where it's like really next level riding. I mean, to this day, especially Ryan Leach's section, that riding is just incredible. And then so on from there. But I was talking to Reed, and he was saying himself that, I mean, compared to the early days of producing these videos, I mean, now you can go out with an iPhone, Final Cut Pro, and a good rider essentially in a couple days make similar to a video that took me months to produce and edit and add all the effects in and everything. And so from that standpoint, it's great that it basically takes what once was way out here of producing and creating content, and it brings it in. So now anybody can go out and get a GoPro or an action camera, and with a little bit of equipment, tripods, gimbals, film some pretty good stuff, and then edit it together. To kind of take it a step further, Thor Wixom, the producer of the Down series and the Jib series, was talking about this, where it's with the advent of social media and basically everything modernizing, it's not as easy to make a profit, producing, having a $10,000 or $20,000 budget to produce a full length bike video when you have, YouTubers that produce weekly content of any type of riding you want to see. So I would say that's kind of like the give and take of just the progression of things. So on the one side, much easier to produce content and it's more accessible to people. On the other side, trying to, if you're going to make a living at it, unless you have other side income or you have, a successful YouTube channel, that part of it is more difficult. Because back then, I mean, these videos were $25 and $30, even back in the 90s and 2000s, and you'd wait months or years even for the next video to come out so you could see the latest riding. And like I said, now it's like every week on YouTube. So it's definitely almost like a little juxtaposition of how the filming scene has changed, which overall I think for the better. But yeah, that's kind of just the progression of things. So
wow, progression has been the key to the whole story that we've been talking about. It's cool to see it from where it started to where it's gone, in writing, in the types of writing, and then even in filming. It's very, very cool. But speaking of writing, you guys, let's get over to the section of the podcast. And by the way, thank you for sharing that history and that background. That was really cool to know that the modern style of mountain biking that we have now, the free ride type stuff, was all based out of the love of the sport and not driven by anything else. That's really pure. That's so cool. But let's get into trail talk. And for you guys both as riders, are there any trails that you guys would like to highlight and talk about?
Aaron, I'll let you go first.
Well, I live in
more travel than
I am. I'll give you two. I'll give you an OG one and a current one. So I actually live in Portland, Oregon, and we just got our first downtown bike park. It's called Gateway Green. And Portland is, supposed to be this like big bike city, bike friendly, everything. I think a lot of other cities have come for that title in the last couple of years, but Portland really has been working hard on this place called Gateway Green. And it's like the newest spot in town. It's got, proper jumps. It's got proper pump track. It's got cross country trails. There's a nature play area that's like actually a disguised trials section that's really fun. And it's just kind of cool to finally have a place in Portland that, because for being as bike friendly of a city, the closest actual trails are about 45 minutes to an hour away from town. So as a mountain biker, it's always been kind of conflicting to live here because you think you're moving to a bike city and there is like great street riding and pump tracks and stuff around. I had a pump track in my yard for years, but and a lot of other friends do as well. But to get actual mountain bike trails or any sort of real riding has been difficult. So big shout out to Portland for finally pulling it together.
Nice.
Portland.
And
good job, Portland.
And I just want to, I'll give you an OG trail. This is sort of a trail. I feel like it's a good chance to tell you this story, and I'll go quick. It's in Andorra at the World Cup. And this was the first year of us filming or producing the live broadcast for the UCI World Cup downhill series. This is before we did cross country and that stuff. And this was on Freecaster, pre-Red Bull TV, and we were paying for satellite time for the live uplink out of our own pockets. And this was the year that all three Athertons won. So Rachel won downhill, Dan won four cross, and she won the downhill. And it was raining, and that course was, this World Cup course, right? They're all gnarly, but it was raining that weekend, and it was a very muddy, sloppy course. It was one of the gnarliest courses, maybe next to Val di Sole, that I didn't even like walking down as a filmer. And the rain meant that it slowed everybody down. And you buy satellite time in 1 hour increments, and it's €4,000 for an hour of satellite time. And at this point, we weren't getting any support financially. We were just like paying for it through Freecaster, through like other projects we were doing. This was our baby because we believed in it, It's kind of like airport Wi-Fi. Like you didn't even know it existed, and then all of a sudden it did, and then you complain about it. Right? people would complain or whatever, but we were just doing it for the love. So anyway, so I'll wrap up the story here, but basically the last day we're waiting for, G qualifies first. He's coming down the mountain. It's muddy. So actually the mud has slowed everyone down considerably. And our window that we usually do our broadcast is getting really tight. And we're sitting there in the booth, me, Warner, the whole crew. And we're like, is he going to make it across the finish line before our satellite time is done?
Oh my God.
Should we pay 4,000 euros for an additional 30 seconds, or maybe it's a total waste? Like, what do we think? And we're like, let's just run it and not save the money. And so G is, in the lead. He's coming down. He's ahead on all the splits on this trail. And, he's right in the final chute. Looks like he's going to win. And
no,
feed cuts out. The internet forums go crazy.
I think I remember hearing about that.
I've been robbed.
So that's the behind the scenes. If you were watching it on Freecaster that year, I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
And I'll put my Venmo if you want 4,000 euros. Just
and real quick, shout out to Rachel. I believe she's having she's getting ready to have a baby in a few months. So
that's cool.
Shout out to her.
So those are my two trails. Sorry.
Right. Those are great trails, and that was an awesome story. Holy cow. I bet everybody was like, what happened? What happened?
We knew it. We were like duck and cover out of that production booth.
Change your jackets, put your shirts inside out, fellas. Let's get out of here.
That was a rough one.
Oh, that's a good one. Thanks for sharing that one. That's cool. That's very cool.
So for trails, I guess for me, I'll just kind of go through a quick list. So growing up on the East Coast, there's if you're in Massachusetts, New England, there's Vietnam, which is a real technical, cool spot in mid Mass. A lot of ladder bridges and teeter totters and all kinds of stuff to play around on. Highland Mountain Bike Park in New Hampshire. That's a really fun one. They have an indoor practice area. They have tons of really cool trails. My buddy Brian is actually a riding instructor there. Awesome people, great vibe. Sunday River, Maine. That's another great network of trails there. And I have to real quick mention Missouri because I used to live out there for a little bit. Actually, just real quick, funny story. So the rep that I work with, Pat, at Giant, he lives here in Arizona. I was over one time. They were having like a family dinner with me over, and I knew that he was from there. And his wife had mentioned that when she was in college, she worked at this McDonald's on Manchester Road, and my jaw hit the floor because again, here it is, 20 plus years later. Just I happen to move to Arizona. They happen to be there, whatever, and I said, was that the McDonald's that it was like kind of shaped like a rectangle and it was near the Schwinn bike shop? She goes, yeah. And I'm like, we used to eat there after riding street back in the late 90s, So I have to mention Castlewood State Park, awesome place to shred some trails. And then real quick to finish up here in Arizona, I live in Tucson, so it's really cool because a lot of people think, desert and all that, but it's actually pretty diverse. So we have like Sweetwater, Fantasy Island, Star Pass, and then on the mountain, Mount Lemmon, which is 9,100 feet elevation right here just in the back of Tucson. We have Bug Springs, which is popular. Actually, if anybody follows Nate Hills, he was here. He even might still be here. He did the 50-year trail. He did Bug Springs. He did La Milagrosa, which is fun but rough. And then at the very top of Mount Lemmon, you have Aspen Draw, which is pretty much like a northeast downhill trail. And needless to say, I was pleasantly shocked when I got up there, and it's like I'm back home again. I'm back east. So those would have to be my trail shout outs for this.
Those are great trail shout outs, man. And you were talking about East Coast trails, guys. What do you guys think is the difference between East Coast riding and West Coast riding? Because I've heard that from other people that it's different, and I've never rode back east, so I don't know the differences. But or is there a difference between East and West Coast riding?
Oh yeah, yeah. Here, Aaron, I'll give you a chance there to jump in.
Well, I moved to the Northwest where there's loam everywhere, so I can't totally. I feel like I hit it just right. It's so fun and soft and hero dirt every day up here. So my memory of riding on the East Coast was that it was way harder and gnarlier and just like rough. And you had to be tough to ride on the East Coast, I remember. Whereas, West, I don't know. Now, I'm not saying it's soft out here by any means, but it's definitely not as gnarly.
No, Aaron pretty much hit the nail on the head with that. So East Coast riding is really choppy, really technical. Again, for those watching, you can hop on YouTube and look at some of the chain reaction videos, especially the earlier ones that had more of the racing in it, like Chain Reaction 2, Chain Reaction 3, Plattekill, I think it's just Mountain Creek now, the formerly the Diablo Freeride Park, Mountain Creek, New Jersey, all Maine, so Sunday River, super technical, gnarly chunk, steep, even flat, cross country trails are going to have rocks and roots and just very technical riding, which is kind of what segued into the trials riding. I was already riding these technical trails, and my older friends, again, in kind of Aaron Chase's group, were doing the trial stuff and the street stuff. And so it just kind of progressed. And it's cool because they play off each other. When you have technical trails, but you're doing technical type riding, trials riding, it's really cool because they kind of play off each other. And then, so coming out here, definitely much more mellow, much more flowy, open. Again, when you go to Mount Lemmon, there is some chunk and some rough. But overall, these trails are much more easier on you and your bike, I would say. Definitely have sealant and tubeless though, because the cactus and thorns out here will most certainly put a stop to your ride pretty quickly without some flat protection. So, but for me, I love the diversity. Just to wrap this up, I'm very fortunate to travel back for the summertime and ride back east, and get to ride all those trails, and then come back here and kind of mellow out a bit. So again, just a great kind of diversity of riding. So
whenever I think about East Coast trails, I think about those Brooklyn Machine Works shin burgers.
Right.
That's the epitome of East Coast everything. I don't know. It's like a meat mallet or whatever. With
Literally. Like you couldn't pay me. Maybe if you gave me a winning lottery ticket, I would ride those. But the Brookline and anything Brookline Machine Works is, needless to say, is going to be burly and just ridiculous. Like the Carpeel bikes that Josh Bender used to ride off 50-foot cliffs. Anything in that arena is just going to be crazy burly. So
dang, that is crazy. Yeah, that is quite a difference. I mean, in SoCal where I am, there's a lot of loose over hard. And then after it rains, a couple of days after it rains, we get that hero dirt for a little bit, and everyone's out, PR.
Yeah,
it's a good time. So guys, speaking of, I see you guys have the Deity and the Giants on, the shirts on, and thought we'd get over into the product spotlight part of the show. Product spotlight. If you guys want to share or shout out to any sponsor or product or anything that you're upgraded your bike to or rocking or loving, would be a good time to do that. If you wanted to go, Aaron, did you want to go first?
Sure. Eric and Sadie at Deity, thanks for hooking me up. Always, I've known those guys forever. They actually lived in Oregon originally, and so I had a chance to kind of see them kick things off, and they're amazing people and they make awesome stuff. So shout out to Eric and Sadie. And now they have like a full crew of all kinds of people that are working with them. Ian Highlands is there now. I mean, I actually got a pretty stacked crew. But that was the only update I made to my bike was I put high side bars on the bike, on my new trials bike. So
Nice.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's great. And there was a person in the audience I saw, Adam Mock, who asked the question earlier. He is also a deity writer, and he is for content creation. So he's a YouTuber like me, creates content, and deity is starting to pull in folks like that to kind of help out with what they're doing. So that's pretty cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Shout out to deity.
Yeah, and secondary shout out to Deity. I actually have their one of their carbon bars on my Giant. So, and they've taken some good hits. So, definitely an excellent product. And yeah, big shout out to them. And like Aaron was saying before earlier, they've been in the scene for a long time and was one of the OG manufacturers to really start to cater to the the more trialsy dirt jump kind of crowd as that scene started to progress. I remember seeing their ads in Decline, and yeah, they make a burly product and they stand behind it. So yeah, definitely shout out to them. And for myself, yeah, Giant Bikes, they've been awesome at helping me out. It was a pleasure traveling around with those guys last year and kind of, just getting to, really the bigger thing, besides just the brand is getting people out on bikes. When we go to these demos, talking to them, seeing what type of riding they like to do, finding the right bike for them, the right fit, and just, just getting them, now more than ever with, everything going on to, have people get out there and just ride and enjoy the trail, whatever bike they might be on. But definitely shout out to Giant and also O'Neill Protection. They do a lot of motocross stuff, but they also have a fair amount of bike stuff that they do. And I've been with them since 2000. So yeah,
oh, wow.
it's been a few minutes. So yeah, Giant and O'Neill are definitely the shout outs that I have to give. Oh, and if you ever do come to Tucson, I have a shop with a friend of mine called Tucson Bicycle Service. We do all kind of custom stuff, builds, wheel builds. We're, the owner and I are, we're free riders and riders ourselves. And so we love that whole scene. So yeah, we're on the corner of 22nd and 4th. If you guys are ever in Tucson, stop by and see us.
That's great. If they're out there and they need some kind of a wheel setup or break anything, they can hit you up, and we'll make sure that we get your information out on the show notes as well. And then just to go back to both companies, what I love about Deity is they're awesome. Their style. They got lots of color. They pop on what they're doing, and even their website is very standoutish with what they have. Even your shirt, the way that the font is on Deity.
Show it off, Aaron.
It's cool. But is that a private company that's held by that husband? Was it a husband and wife that you referred to their names?
Oh yeah, Eric and Sadie. As far as I know, I'm not really sure on the back end, but as far as I know, when they first started it, Sadie was working full time, and Eric was just in this like little home office, like working on stuff. And he would tell me like, hey, like I'm working on stuff right now that's like going to come out in like 5 years. And it's so cool when I get to hang out with him now. I'm like, this is the stuff you were working on, like,
wow,
way back then. And just to see how much like time and intention, and yeah, he's really, like just built it up so cool and just so proper, and like made the right decisions the whole way and just kept the integrity intact. And yeah, like all the respect in the world for those guys. And it makes it easy to want to run their stuff because it's actually a great product, but then like, what went into it and how much thought and care and yeah, like super easy call.
Yeah, that's great. And how long have you been are you a Deity ambassador, or do they sponsor you in your trials racing or riding?
I don't know. I've just been kind of like part of the family since the jump. There's no like agreement or anything. I love those guys, and they take good care of me. So,
Awesome.
yeah, I'm just fired up for everything that they do, and I want to see them succeed just, as much as they want to see me succeed. So it's awesome.
That's very cool. Yeah, definitely. Big shout out to Deity folks out there. If you're listening, sounds like that also started out of love and passion as well. So That's always a good spot. That's always a great spot. And then Chris, with you, with Giant, I know when I met you, you are a Giant ambassador, and it sounds like you go out and you do, when it was non-COVID, you go out and do demos to kind of be an outreach to the public in getting into biking. Is that kind of what happens?
Yeah, it was kind of a mix of things. So before COVID, and a lot of bike companies do this, where they have a demo truck and they'll stop at different locations and basically bring out all the new bikes, and you sign a waiver and go try the bike out and get questions answered. Give us feedback. What do you think about the bike? And so I did that. I've been doing that for the last 3 years, and it's been fantastic. Everybody I've had the pleasure of working with, I mean, it is a bigger company. It's actually, I think, one of the, if not the biggest bike manufacturer currently, but everybody does a good job at kind of keeping it local, and again, promoting the product, but also getting people out there on bikes and making sure they got the right bike. And it's been a real good experience. And for myself, I also have a background in sports science, which also plays into it, because I'll do some coaching on the side. Yeah, it's kind of like skills clinics, just kind of in small groups. And of course I'll have all my, my Giant stuff and to have that side of it. But again, I'm just really thankful for the opportunity to use this, kind of like Aaron talked at the beginning, to use the skills we've learned and the techniques we've learned with these awesome bikes that we have to, to kind of bring that out to people and inspire them to get to whatever level they're looking to get to, or learn a wheelie or learn to go down a drop or something. And so Giant has been a great help in achieving that with everything that they've done for me so far. So shout out to Giant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool. And you guys you just mentioned bikes. I almost forgot to ask you, what are the current bikes that you're running right now?
It's a long list.
Okay. What is the bike you ride the most?
I'm riding an Inspired 4Play, which is essentially the same bike you see Danny McCaskill ride. It's a street trials bike. It comes as actually a complete bike. And like I said, the only thing I actually changed on it was the Deity bar. Actually, I put their grips on too. But that's really all I needed to change on the bike. I put in, I made the one biggest thing that I made a difference for me that I didn't expect was I've never changed out stock disc brake pads before, but I put the high performance disc brake pads in the Magura MT7s, and it's like game changer. I've been blowing it all these years, I guess. I just took whatever was the stock brake pad because disc brakes are great. And truthfully, like most of my trials bikes just have rim brakes anyway, but this is my first proper bike with real disc brakes, and that made a big difference. So that's my main one. I also have a mod bike. Also have like a hardcore competition style trials bike, and then I've got a Diamondback proper mountain bike, and just built up a Santa Cruz Chameleon, so I can do a bit more of the mountain bike tutorial trial stuff. That's really kind of like a lot of what I'll be working on in the next couple of months.
Wow,
sweet.
Man, it's a pretty sweet quiver.
So, Aaron, having the Inspired 4Play, when are we going to see some of those Danny Mac style foot jam whips?
Yeah, I'm working on some more of the front wheel stuff. Like the reverse nose wheelie stuff is super exciting and like pretty fun to learn. It's just getting that balance point right. It's interesting too, because my whole life I either rode mod bike 20-inch or stock bike 26-inch, and this bike's 24-inch wheels. So you have to readjust and reorient all your balance points to another wheel size.
Right.
So it's not the end of the world by any means. I feel like I lose a little bit of power from 26 to 24. But getting the balance points and figuring out like how far over the handlebars can I go on my front wheel before I tip over has been that's been like the majority of my time, really getting to know this bike and figure out where the balance points are. So I guess the short answer is soon, but work in progress for sure.
Oh yeah, no easy task. Those guys make it look easy, but anything front wheel is far as I've come as a rider over the last 20 plus years, front wheel stuff is it's kind of a bane. I gotta say, it's just, you know, some days you're good and some days it's like, you know, just like manual. Some days you can manual all day and others you're just like topple it over. So okay, so bikes. I've kind of dwindled down a bit. But I have my main bike, which is my 2020 Trans Advance. Awesome bike. It's kind of at this point my kind of do everything bike. I mean, I'll trials ride with it and trail ride. It's a 140, 150 bike, carbon frame with the Eagle, the 10 by 50 setup on there, which is great. And the bike has really been, you know, phenomenal. You know, as far as the abuse that I that I put it through as my main bike, definitely kind of a jack of all trades type thing. And then I have a hardtail, just kind of a more basic kind of cross country bike that I'll get out and, you know, put some miles on. I did have a road bike for a bit that I sold. I just man, just spinning for hours and going, you know, 50 miles and having a sore behind. I'm like, I'll sell it and I'll you know, put it towards you know, towards more mountain bike stuff. And then I have a beach cruiser that you know, maybe if I come and see you out there sometime, you know, I'll have a reason. I don't know how close to the shore you live, but, you know, find a reason to use that. And then I'm looking at getting some type of trials bikes. I'm 6'2" and tall and lanky, so mod bikes kill me. The last time I rode my friend's mod bike, I kept flipping over backwards because, you know, you get used to riding mountain bikes and a certain amount of force to pull up, you know, to get those to bunny hop, and then you get on a 17, 16-pound mod bike and it's like anyway, so yeah, so that's kind of what I'm rocking now. And so yeah, I'm deciding between either like an inspired like what Aaron has or some type of street trials. I had a couple of dirt jumpers, I sold those. But yeah, so maybe another dirt jumper or kind of a mix, like a, you know, a street trials bike that you can, you know, take off ramps or take to skate parks or something like that is hopefully in maybe the next month or two here. So yeah,
That'd be awesome. Well, you know, when I met you, were you on the 2020 Trans bike at the time?
yeah, so the bike you saw me on that had the blown rear hub, that's my main bike that I use. And then I hopped on my buddy's Da Vinci which was nerve-wracking to say the least, because like I said, on the spot with those small tires, you know, you're just fighting the bike to stay on the line the whole time. And then there's the exit line. See, it's one thing to do the white line, but you got to do the exit line. You know, you can't just stop and then get off the bike and like hand it down to somebody. You know, you got to ride that sucker out. And so I did the exit line down to the bottom. So to do that first try on, you know, somebody else's bike was pretty cool to get that. And then to conquer that fear of finally getting down that, you know, that last part was pretty cool. And besides the video that we have, if people watching want to see a more detailed video of it, Eric Porter, who Aaron referenced earlier, does it with Seth's Bike Hacks, which is now
Burn Peak.
Burn Peak, yeah. They have a whole section on it where Eric is very patient with Seth and just slowly gets him to do it. So but yeah, awesome, fun thing, more of a novelty thing. You know, it's more of a pro line. I say people, if they're going to look at it or consider it, definitely be careful, know your limits as with anything. You know, and if you're not feeling it, you know, it's better to live another day than to you know, go out not the way you wanted to. So
Yeah, I don't think there's any coming back if you fall on the white line, right? I mean, there's
300-foot drop is probably going to do it for you.
Yeah. And for the folks who are listening, the white line is this, I don't know how many feet up in the air it is, but it's literally a white line on the side of a rock that goes out to the whole time you're on the edge of a cliff, basically. And the further you go out, the deeper this cliff gets. And at one point you hit the end of it, it's like a tree or or the end part, you literally have to turn 90 degrees and almost head straight down, almost down a vertical wall, stop, make another 90-degree turn, and head back. And what was interesting about the day, if you hadn't seen the video, folks, when Chris gets there, he is on his buddy's bike because his bike's drivetrain blew. So he borrowed his buddy's bike. His buddy's bike's rims, or your wheels, what were your wheels, a 2.5 or 2.6?
Yeah, 2.5 with a 30 or 31 millimeter wide carbon rim, and his were 27 with a 2.3 tire. And if you remember, the first time I did it, I actually folded the tire over and burped it.
You burped it? Yeah.
On the turn, like I made it down the thing, and then right when I turned, it just popped off the rim, and I just had to like walk the bike back, like totally sketch, just to try to see if I wanted to do it again. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know if this is gonna happen.
Dude, that was sketchy because you were literally making the turn in, like in trials form, you were on your back wheel hopping and turning the bike, and then it burped on that off-camber slope. Lost all your air, and you can hear the rim as you're still trying to bounce. You can hear the rim going tink, tink, tink off the rock. And that was crazy because you're the furthest point out, which is also the farthest drop down. Yeah. And luckily you walked it back. You were safe to walk it back. And then the wind started picking up, and we were putting CO2 cartridges back in there. And I was telling you, I'm like, I don't know, Chris, dude, you don't have to do this. But you kind of had it in your mind. You were going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And when you lined up to drop in the second time, the winds really picked up. But then also all the tourists started noticing that you were going to do it. And I remember people trying to take pictures of you when you were trying to set your focus. You know, you were getting ready to make the run, and there were people standing on the white line in front of you, like trying to take your picture. Oh, that was crazy. But if you get a chance, folks, check out that video of Aaron riding the white line. That was pretty amazing.
You mean me?
I'm sorry, Aaron. I was looking at Aaron. I meant Chris. Chris Triple Whip. He's riding the white line, and that was pretty amazing on a buddy's bike on his second attempt with the wind starting to pick up.
So, the people watching, I don't mind. You know, I'm kind of, you know, I have a background in acting a little bit in theater, and so you kind of get used to stage fright and people watching you. It's just more of the white line is all about just keeping focus, looking 2 to 3 feet ahead of you, not looking to the left, just maintaining focus, maintaining composure, control your breathing. You know, just think logically, methodically. Okay, now we get to this part. Now we do this part, and you know, you're just constantly shifting your focus to the next thing, and you're just kind of walking yourself through it and just taking it step by step, real quick. Like when I teach people doing drops, you know, it's basically 2 things. Like you roll into the drop, rolling up to the drop, your vision is going to be where your takeoff line is. When you get to your takeoff line, you're going to automatically switch to where you want to land because the bike goes where you look. And and that was actually this last weekend I was in Sedona and got to ride with Dusty Betty. Got to give her a shout out, and her husband Steve, Hardtail Party, and we were demoing some drops. And so again, that was another cool opportunity to teach some new riders or even more experienced riders, show them some new techniques that'll help them get better. So anyway, so not to deviate, but just to kind of throw that in as a bonus. If you're going to do a drop, spot your takeoff, and then when you get to your takeoff, spot your landing, commit, and you know, and you're good to go. So
love it. Any tips we can get is always a great thing. That's for sure. I would love to have you guys back on just to talk about some of these tip tricks that we can learn and practice. That would be really fun. Guys, let's move over to the next spot. And luckily we have a filmer on the show tonight, so this will be interesting to see as well. But if you haven't gotten a chance to, our guest Aaron tonight has his own YouTube channel. It's called Lutze Time, and you can find that on YouTube. And it goes back quite a ways. He was telling me some of the videos that he has here, but it's a great aspect to look at a filmer who has a YouTube channel who actually came from the whole growth of this mountain bike movement. So you'll be looking at some of the videos from him if you check out Lutze Time there. And with that being said, for YouTubers, Aaron, we'll start with you first. who are one or two of the YouTubers that you enjoy watching when you're watching YouTube?
As a trials writer, I've got to go with Allie Clarkson to start. I mean,
You stole mine.
There was a series that he did where he built up all these old bikes, and all the bikes were from kind of like my original generation of riding. So he built up a Crescent Illoins. He built up all these dream bikes that I always wanted to have, but I was like, a kid working at McDonald's trying to put one bike together. He was riding all the dream bikes, and it was really cool to watch him like put this old bike together that was a dream bike, have the ability to ride it to its potential. And yeah, that series that he did was really special. I thought, I'm really enjoying watching him, and I learned watching him what he does and his take on it. Obviously, as a trials rider, we definitely have a little different approaches to our channels, but he's definitely been in it for a lot longer, and goals for sure. So I put him up there, and then I would also say Eric Porter. I mean, Porter and I have been homies for a super long time, and he was one of the people that kind of inspired me to just start shooting and editing again. We used to shoot together, and he started picking up a camera and editing stuff, and he was showing it to me, and I was like, man, if only YouTube existed when we were making match videos, then I could have just kept doing that. And so, we talked a lot about what he was doing, and I was so intrigued by it. And I was like, well, I have all the bikes and I know how to make videos. Like, it would be really fun to just learn, just like relearn some stuff, learn how YouTube is different from making DVDs like I used to, and just start putting stuff together. And then the kind of final element to the whole thing for me actually was, I had this goal. When I was 18, I broke the side hop world record. It was 36 at the time, 36 inches. So you're track standing, and then you just static hop up and over a bar. I pushed it up to 38.5 inches. And wow. So I've always that was a big moment for me in my riding. And I thought over the summer, we're not leaving the house. I got plenty of time. What's a project that I can do? And what could I focus maybe the YouTube thing on? And so I said, okay, I'm going to see if I can go out and break my old record from when I was 18 years old. Now I got dad strength and stuff. So, but I have a proper bike, all these elements that are coming together. So will I be able to get back to where I was? How long will it take? And actually yesterday I broke it. So
no way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Friday's video will be mostly about progression and growth on, bringing it all back together and how to judge your progression and growth and stuff. So, yeah. So Porter, big shout out for getting me back on the horse with the riding and the shooting. Not that I wasn't riding, but, pulling out the camera gear. And it was a really fun exercise. There's a couple longer clips on my channel that are some of my old footage from shooting with Petey. I was there when he won the world champs. For that, we did so much race stuff, so much free ride stuff. And I just picked my favorite stuff that I had on all the old hard drives and kind of smashed it together and narrated a little bit of the backstory to each one. So, yep.
That's very cool. Check out Lutze Time, and especially this Friday. What time do your videos drop, Aaron?
7 a.m. on Fridays. But sometimes I just drop them right when I wake up, so a little bit earlier. But
I know that feeling. Sometimes you have something good, you're like, I'll just drop it right now.
I'm awake.
Exactly. Oh, that's great. Congratulations as well on breaking your record. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, congrats, man. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked. And when I did it the first time, I was, again, I was on a cross-country bike with some cobbled together parts. Now I have a proper bike that is supposed to do that kind of stuff. So, I guess aging didn't get to me too much, and everything kind of balanced back out, but it has been a pretty long 6 months. I've definitely taught that high jump bar a few new cuss words,
And you didn't have the deity components too back then that you do now. So
we're dialed now.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, how about you, buddy? What do you watch when you're watching YouTube?
So real quick to kind of piggyback on some of the stuff Aaron said. So yeah,
he stole one from you.
yeah. Super. I've been watching him since he had not even 10,000 subscribers, and I think now he's a little over 100. Great, great content. Just really well edited. He's very honest, and if he's trying to move and he doesn't get it, he'll explain why and how, and like, oh, that left me completely knackered, and and then Eric Porter, again, I would say, since we're on that subject, one of the most underrated riders, in my opinion. I mean, just watching him ride from the early days of Chain Reaction and Killing Time and the match videos, he's doing the rail grinds, and no matter what bike you put the guy on, he just kills it. And it was just so cool to watch that, whether it's a downhill bike or a dirt jump bike or whatever, BMX bike. And so that was really cool. As far as riders I watch, Nate Hills, he does the Follow Cam Fridays, a lot of really cool stuff. He rides with a whole kind of diverse group of riders, which is really cool, very inspiring. And then it's totally not bike related, but I've been watching a lot of Mr. Beast lately for reason. I guess I just like that.
They're funny. Yeah, my son watches that, and I watch it with him. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, Jimmy's a cool guy. And then, so Nate, and then we talked about Seth. He's really cool. Hans has a YouTube channel, and he's got a lot of really cool content. To kind of finish up on that note, where Aaron was talking about, or you guys were talking about having the proper bikes compared to before, where you're just cobbling stuff together. Well, Hans, maybe a few months ago, came out with a video where he rides one of his older bikes, and like he's hanging on for dear life, and awful. And then he gets on his 2020 trail bike and is just killing it, and to show how far bike technology has come, and which is crazy, because again, from Aaron and I, those bikes were like the cream of the crop back then, and it's like, oh, how could it get any better? It's like, all this stuff, and then now we look at it and it's like, belongs in a museum, so anyways, yeah, those are channels I would have to give a shout out to for inspiration, and because it's great to see the older guys, still doing it. I mean, Hans has got to be what, 53, 54 now, something like that, and he's still killing it. So it gives, for me in my mid 30s now, mid to late 30s, if you will, it gives me hope that, and Jeff Lanowski too. I mean, shoot, all those guys are still ripping like it was 20 years ago, so it's good stuff.
It is, with the suspension on the bikes nowadays too. I mean, easier on, well, you can go bigger, but it's you could ride for a while. Guys, wanted to round the corner with the funny questions, and I always love how people answer these on the show, and I did change them up a little bit. So if you'd seen an episode or two in the past, they have changed a little bit, and for those of you watching or listening to the podcast in the future, they've changed a little bit. So if you two are ready, we'll roll through some of these funny questions, see how you answer. We'll start with Aaron first, and then get over to Chris for the second part of it. No right or wrong answer. Okay.
Oh boy.
Question one. Yeah. Question one. As a mountain biker, uphill or downhill, which one do you like better? Uphill or downhill, and why?
I mean, downhill is kind of the obvious answer, but truthfully for me, I really kind of like uphill. I don't love the cardio part of it, but it's way harder. And I guess just like innate as a trials rider, I'm trying to find the hardest possible stuff to ride, and that's just kind of coming with it. I actually went on a brief stint as an ultra runner for the past couple of years too, so there's like something kind of mystical about running uphill. And so I don't know, like transfers back over to the bike. But yeah, I guess like riding uphill to me is still kind of a game, and it's way harder, but it's I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just like wired to go do hard things. I don't know.
That's a great answer. I'll play a game too as I'm going uphill. I always play the no dabs game, and if feel like I'm falling, I'm like no dabs, no dabs, no dabs, and then it's either or yay. Chris, how about you, buddy? When riding the mountain bike, which one do you feel is more fun, uphill or downhill, and why?
So yeah, kind of like what Aaron was saying. I mean, downhill would be the obvious answer, and of course it's fun. But the older I get, the more I actually enjoy climbing. This a recent trip to Sedona this last weekend, when we did a ride with Dusty Betty, we ended up doing a lot of climbing because we did the Scorpion Trail and down into that region there, and I think we ended up doing 1,100 feet of climbing in just a few miles, if that. So, but it gets you in shape. It challenges you, and helps to grow your skills. And like the lesson I gave in the white line video of like how to get up and over things. If you remember, I even referenced climbing, where is if you're climbing and you have to go over a route, you want to go on your bad foot first. And then as you approach the route, you're going to crank forward and lift your front wheel up, and that's going to get you up over that route while you're still climbing, so you can keep your momentum. But if I had just done downhill and just been kind of closed off, like I was years ago, I used to race downhill in the Norba series. You miss out on all that skill. So I would say it's like 50-50 now. As much as I love downhill, I also love a good uphill and a good challenge to put the work in and keep my heart in one piece as I get older.
I love it, man. You guys are answering these great. I love that. That's so cool. Question number 2. Here we go. What is, in mountain biking or any product, any name, but a mountain bike related name, what is the most sexiest mountain bike name you can recall? And also, what is the least sexiest mountain bike name?
I'll go first with the least sexy to say Shinburger.
Shinburger.
Who in their right mind would be like, oh, that's for me? Worst pedal name ever. Or maybe best, I don't know.
So I'll chime in with the worst. I'd have to say, I don't know why this just came to mind, because this is years ago. It was Gary Fisher was known for having some weird name bikes, and it was called like the Huku Iku bike. It was basically a cross country hardtail, but I was a kid when it came out. But I'm like, the Huku Iku, like who named the bike like this?
The marketing, the branding team's like, oh no, how are we going to market this thing?
Yeah, or no offense to Kona, because I love Kona, but the Stinky, it's like, what bike do you ride? Oh, I ride a Stinky. Was
the Hukuiku a Grateful Dead tribute bike or something? I remember there was some kind of Grateful Dead Gary Fisher bike at one point. Was that it?
That's a good question. It might be. That's something I'd have to look up again, but that could be very well possible.
If it is, that's very cool. But if it just saying it out loud, Huku Iku, it definitely can qualify for the least sexiest.
Yeah, or at least.
All right, and then what is the sexiest name in mountain biking? I mean, it doesn't have to be the bike names either. It could be any product or like you like Aaron, the Shinburger. That's a good one.
I can't think of the most. I'm trying to recall everything that's been thrown out there. There have been some just horrific names to bike parts, but I'm blanking right now.
Deity's a sexy name. Deity's pretty sexy name.
We'll go with it.
What comes to mind, there's a brand called Fazzari that I think sounds, because it sounds like Ferrari. I've always liked Orbea for some reason. Just I like how it sounds. Like, what do you ride? I ride an Orbea.
Yeah. Sir, we've watched your Fazari. Your Fazari's ready for the trail. Oh, thank you very much. One of our guests here, this is one of the guys I ride with, Joe Yates. He says,
"What do you think, Aaron?
What's that?
I'd say the Jeff C. See, that's more handsome. That's more handsome sounding.
Handsome, sexy name.
Yeah.
Aaron's still thinking over there.
I got nothing. I don't know.
He was gonna roll a deity there.
Yeah, I'll stick with deity.
Bronson's another handsome name. Love it. Okay, question number. What are we on? 3? This is 3, right?
Yep.
Question number 3. Aaron, what secret bike conspiracy would you like to start?
Secret bike conspiracy. I would like to start a conspiracy that we'll do a trials-based one, that trials riders actually have a special hub that makes the wheel do what it does. That's my conspiracy.
Oh, is it true? Do we not know? It's a conspiracy.
That's my favorite thing to do with we did a shoot with a photographer, and Kenny Belay was the rider, and I was like, Kenny was riding and he put the bike down. The photographer was kind of standing there, and I was like, he didn't know that I was a trials rider, and I got on the bike and I was like, oh, look at this! It hops on the back wheel. These bikes just do this. This is amazing. And I put the bike down and I just kind of wandered off to the side, and I saw the photographer hop on the bike and and I was just dying.
Where's the on button on this thing?
That's the best part about being a trials rider. No one knows, and you can just oh yeah, this bike just does that. I guess I don't know.
That's awesome. That's good. That's a good one.
Well, real quick, one shout out I have to give to bikes. Obviously, I'm wearing this shirt. Is the Giant Rain, which is their more free ride enduro bike. I was always like that name. I was this close to getting one, but too much travel and too slack of a head angle for what I do. But definitely got to throw the Giant Rain in there. As far as conspiracies, I would say that playing a mountain bike video game or mountain bike moto trials game, because I know those were pretty popular, will translate to to being better riders. So you got a kid playing the game, and he's out he wants to jump off his roof or something in the game, and yeah, you got it, you played the game, right? Sure, go for it, no problem. You'll just stop just like the guy in the game. You'll get right back up.
Yeah, it could be where the industry is taking in data these are new things that we could be pushing out there in the near future as far as tricks go. Here's one. MTB department along this line says Tesla is working on a gas-powered MTB bike. That's a good one. All right, final question, you guys, and it is this. In mountain biking, what is invisible but you wish others could see?
It's a good question.
I would say how much effort goes on for the top riders, how much effort they're actually putting on off the bike is the most invisible thing. You have no idea how hard these guys are working, whether it's physical stuff, PT or lifting weights, managing their careers when it comes to all of the requirements that they have to do, whether it's social media or being in touch with you've got 10 sponsors, that's 10 people you got to talk to. The job of being a top rider and still being able to perform at that high level is, I think, invisible to a lot of people who aren't right there with them and all that stuff. I think it's just kind of an assumed thing, and I would love for people to see that kind of shine, or to get shine for that, just because that's got to be harder than most of their training from what I've seen.
Yeah, and inspirational to see how they would categorize their day, how they would motivate themselves to get after it and stay consistent with it. Yeah, you're right. That's a lot of the stuff for Glory is done behind the scenes. That's a great one. Great one. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I just because it's such a big thing and is really ties into the theme of what we were talking about before with, dealing with the hidden struggles of progressing the scene to where it is today. Just like Aaron said, whether you're a privateer, a YouTube creator, there's just a private racer, whatever. There's so much stuff going on behind the scenes that people don't see. A lot of times, like when I do the coaching things, the people say, "Oh, I want to ride like you do," and it can't be that hard, can it? And obviously you got to maintain professionalism, but part of you just wants to like really just kind of dump on them and show them, no, it's hours of that one back wheel trick you saw me do. Yeah, that took me 2 weeks of hours and hours of practice over and over and over again to finally get it. And then you get the hang of it, but then sort of kind of, and you got to keep doing it until you get it solidified. Or if you're a racer or a YouTube content creator, filming, editing, making it look good, making sure all your sponsors get proper notoriety, and making sure the content's good, and keeping a filming schedule where your content is consistent, thinking of new ideas of where to ride, what to do. That's all things that that I think people don't see. And you see it in the comment section. Sometimes like Ali, he'll apologize for not coming out with a video, and I want to say don't apologize. Like, that your viewers should know that it's not just like that 20 minutes of footage that you see is hours worth of writing and editing and putting music to it, or whatever it might be. And if people could see that, I think there would be much more appreciation as to the amount of work it takes to going into doing all this, and then the self-teaching aspect too of for myself, like I'm still learning filming and editing, and trying to teach myself new tricks on the bike. Like, okay, I know I can do this, but that a lot of other riders do this, so I need to do this plus this, but make sure that I film it properly, so all this work I put into doing this new move actually it translates to the camera, so yeah.
And that's a good thought for you, especially coming from the theater side, always knowing where the camera is. And I noticed that when I was filming you always had put yourself in a great view and made sure that you were where the mic could pick you up. That was just natural. I know. There he is, folks. Wolverine in the house. You guys answered those questions really, really well. That was awesome. Thank you guys so much. And you guys, thank you so much for being on the show. This was a really cool journey to take with you guys, and taking us through the whole history of mountain biking and where we've come. And then as well, having you on the line and talking about the filming part, and then you as a trials rider, a trials professional rider, that vantage point. So what a treat to have you both. Chris, it was really good to see you. Before you guys go, if we want to follow your journey and see what you're up to, where can we find you guys? Under what medias can we follow you guys?
Yeah, if you want to check me out, I have a YouTube channel called Lutze Time. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's just Aaron Lutze. That's the best place to find me. I've been putting out these regular videos every Friday, and trying to do some shorts videos in there as well. But Fridays are the big ones. So definitely check it out. And yeah, that's the best place to track me down.
And that's Lutze with the Lutze. If you guys want to type that in, Aaron Lutze on IG, and then Lutze Time on YouTube. And how about you, Chris? Where can we follow your story?
Sure. So my kind of main kind of media platform is Instagram and Facebook. I have a Facebook athlete page that I keep fairly regularly updated. Just my name, Chris Maida. I do have a YouTube channel, which is right there, Ride with Chris. Admittedly, there's really not a lot of content on it. Getting back into like the whole filming aspect and getting the time to ride and film. You know, we have this new bike shop that I'm working on with my friend, and we're, you know, busy with that. So, but anyway, so Ride with Chris for YouTube, and then my Instagram is Triple Whip One, where I post fairly regularly on there, different content and stories and whatnot. So. And shout out to Aaron for coming to this podcast. I reached out to him maybe not even a week ago, and I'm like, hey, man, long time no see. Here's this guy you never heard of. Do you want to do a podcast? So
it's fun talking about all this stuff. I'm so pumped to join you guys, and thanks again for having me. It was awesome.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you for being on. I'm gonna have to go back and look at my notes and stuff, because a lot of the names that you guys dropped when you were talking about this sport blowing up, I want to go back and see all that, especially that behind the scenes of the racer with the 4,000 euros per hour, and you guys were cutting it close to the second and it blipped off. Man, I got to check that out.
That was a rough one.
Well, thank you guys so much. What was that, Chris?
Oh, yeah. Right, no, was that Rob Warner you said that was on that segment with the Euros?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Euro thing was kind of behind the scenes. That's not public story until right now.
But that's the reason why, folks, if you were watching that in that moment, why it blipped off is because, you know, it was executive decisions that had to be made. But hey, everyone, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you to everybody who's listening to the podcast here in the future. And that is it for the segment podcast tonight. Again, my special guests, Mr. Aaron and Triple Whip One, aka Chris. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, see you later. Bye.